My fusion system, fusing 1,000 chickens at the start. Chapter 71, The Magic on the Scroll. Run, run quickly. It's a monster. It's not something we can fight. The Allied troops were utterly defeated in front of the Golden Flash, and they scattered to escape. The Golden Flash flew into the sky. The three heads were in the shape of a lion, a tiger, and a goat, and they symbolized fire, earth, and darkness. The lion's head spewed a gold tear spell called sunlight. A light pillar that was several meters thick fell from the sky and swept across the field. It left a deep, charred ravine on the ground. Anyone sucked into it would not be left behind, they would turn into steam and die. The high temperature also burned those who were slightly further away. They screamed and rolled on the ground as they slapped their bodies continuously. The goat's head spat out black fog. The fog had a strong corrosive property. The skin of those touched by the fog began to wrinkle speedily. Then, it gradually peeled off to reveal the flesh beneath it. Eventually, their skin would turn green, and their internal organs would fall onto the ground. The organs that fell would seem as if they had come back to life. The pulsing membrane on the surface would crack after a short delay. The liquid would be sprayed onto other people, and it would corrode their bodies, cause them to fall to the ground and explode. It was like an exploding plague, and it would spread endlessly. The tiger's head did not shoot anything, it only roared. Its roar would turn into a sound wave and seep into the ground. It would make the ground uneven with sharp spikes, and their enemies' heads would hang on top of those spikes. The land nearby would also crack open. The crack was thick and long, and it would devour all life. That was the first time since Golden Flash had transformed into a six-winged golden chimera that it had used its full strength. Its reputation was clearly much stronger than Watson's. Scarlet sat on the back of the Golden Flash's head. She raised her longbow and nocked an arrow. Occasionally, she would shoot the soldiers to drive them back. Scarlet's face was pale when she did that. Her eyes were filled with pity as she resisted the urge to vomit. She was only an 11-year-old girl. That was the first time she had seen the devastation of a battlefield. She had planned to flaunt the silver-tier longbow in her hand to chase the bad guys away. After that, she only wanted to reduce the number of people who died there. Everyone, put down your weapons now. I can spare your lives. The situation had tilted when the Golden Flash joined the battle. Watson wiped the blood stains on his black shirt as he said that. Blood streamed down the black shirt and fused into the cloth to turn the shirt into a thick set of armor. There were ferocious barbs on it, no one had dared to touch it. The armor was a gold tier armor that Watson had previously fused. It was the armor of an ancient knight. It had an independent skill, which was to summon an ancient knight's heroic spirit. It could also absorb power to summon a gold tier soul. It had managed to absorb the enemy's flesh and blood from the attacks, and the armor was so eager to give it a try that one could feel its faint desire. Watson did not control it, he released the ancient knight's heroic spirit. Behind him, the air cracked a hole that was several meters wide to connect to another world. The aura of death blew like the wind. The ghost, which was several meters tall and covered in illusory armor, swung the heavy sword in its hand that was several meters long and smashed it down. A gully that stretched dozens of meters appeared, and the men in its path were split into two. Ancient knight's heroic spirit, obey the call and sacrifice yourself. My honorable master, you are blessed in the name of the god of war, and you will be invincible. He was still muttering after the ghost appeared. Watson judged that the ghosts could only last for 10 minutes. That meant Black Moon Castle would have 3 gold-tier warriors for 10 minutes, and that included him. It was a luxury to have such strength for a battle. More than 3,000 soldiers had rushed into the castle, but there were only 1,000 men left. Watson teleported and used a long sword formed from the light to pierce through a soldier's chest. He wiped the blood on his face and shouted, I repeat, everyone, put down your weapons. If he could, he would not want to kill anyone. He had lived in a fair society in his previous life. At that moment, when he looked at the dead bodies on the ground, the smell of blood in the air made his stomach churn. However, he had to protect his family, so he had no choice but to bear it. "I surrender. Let me go." The attack was organized by Master Wilbur and the other manor owners. I was forced to join. When they heard Watson's voice, some of the men felt their legs go weak. They knelt on the ground and cast the weapons in their hands away. Someone had taken the lead, and the rest looked at each other. Their faces were pale as they knelt on the ground, one after another. More than 1,000 people had knelt on the ground. A golden light circled the sky, it cast a huge mottled shadow on the ground. The ancient knights held heavy swords in their hands, they guarded Watson's back like a statue, and it made him look like the emperor of an ancient kingdom. The people who had rushed into Black Moon Castle had surrendered, and the sounds of fighting outside had gradually weakened. 30 Black Moon Knights came back under Vincent's lead. Each of them was stained with blood that could not be dissolved, but there was pride in their eyes. Except for Vincent, the others knelt in front of Watson. "Young master, please give us further orders." The 30 men were in a neat formation. Even though there were sword wounds on their faces and they were panting heavily, not a single one of them had died. Once upon a time, they were only ordinary cultivators. However, under Watson's guidance, they had managed to improve their strength many times fold than before. They could fight against 100 people by themselves. It was a battle of blood and fire, and everyone had improved. They were the strength that protected Black Moon Castle, they were the Black Moon Iron Cavalry that symbolized glory. They had wiped out all of their enemies in front of them. The Allied troops had more casualties than they could ever imagine. They had only 500 men left. However, most of them were Iron Tier warriors, and they were well equipped. Many of them were elite teams organized by the manor owners, that was why they were able to fight the Black Moon Iron Cavalry for so long. The battle had ended. The Allied troops had suffered a great defeat, and they had sacrificed more than 3,000 lives. As for the Black Moon Castle, they had suffered no casualties. Everyone was eager for the battle to end, but some people did not want it to end so soon. A mysterious chant came from outside the manors. "Great Sea God, you are the incarnation of the water element that flows endlessly. I am Folson, your humble servant, and I am here to offer my faith to you. Please lower your divine power and turn into a silver snake that can destroy the world. Gold tier spell Silver Serpent on the raging sea." The person who chanted was Folson. He hovered in the air with a blue magic staff in his hand as a golden scroll hung in front of him. The twisted triangular characters on it floated outward and twisted together before it turned into a silver snake. The air became sticky. Dark clouds covered the sky, and thunder rolled. Illusory waves appeared on the ground within a few kilometers. It was as if the ocean had descended. A huge python filled with an ancient aura swam in the sea. It brought white waves with it, and the huge waves were more than 10 meters high as they rushed toward the Black Moon Castle. The 500 Allied troops stood outside Black Moon Castle. They were at a loss when they saw the snake before the sea swallowed them. Their flesh and blood had fed the waves, and the illusory sea became more real. The huge python's eyes flashed blood red. It was filled with indifference that seemed to look down on everything. When he saw the waves churned beneath his feet, Folson held his magic staff and grabbed the scroll. Then, he descended from the sky and stood in front of the dumbfounded Wilbur. "Master Wilbur, this ancient magic is recorded on a golden scroll that I accidentally obtained. It's also top tier among other gold tier magic. Unfortunately, it's only half of it. It requires a large amount of flesh and blood to use the combined attack magic, but only barely. I'm good at making decisions, and I've decided to use those 500 men who had lost their ability to fight as sacrifices for the sea. You won't mind, right?" It did not matter what other people thought, he would still push for the war to move forward because he wanted his bounty. Folson's voice was cold. It was as if the people he used as sacrifices were not living people at all but a bunch of lowly ants. Chapter 72, A Crisis. "Master Wilbur, is my question so difficult to understand?" Why aren't you saying anything? Folson fixed his eyes on Wilbur as he asked in puzzlement. You want me to say something, but what can I say? Wilbur was so angry that his mouth was crooked. Folson had sacrificed those people, including the 100 elite members that he and the other manor owners had jointly found. All of them were Iron Tier warriors with war horses and a complete set of Iron Tier armor each. In the blink of an eye, all of them were gone. Those 500 men had been devoured. The ocean that Folson had summoned did not even stimulate a single wave. One could see the armor and weapons as they floated on the ocean surface. They seemed to have been eroded as well, with blue cracks on them. The money that Wilbur had invested in that army was worth at least thousands of gold coins, but it had been wasted just like that. He had heard of powerful mages who would capture vagrants or people without statuses to research magic. However, that was the first time he had seen them use men like guinea pigs for experiments. He was not the only one. The other manor owners were also very dissatisfied with Folson. Wilbur was not the only person who worked hard on their troops, the manor owners put in the same effort. Other than them, Nightingale, who stopped peeling the rainbow phoenix chicken, also looked at Folson with killing intent. As a shadow guard, her hands were also stained with the blood of others, but all those people were evil. Folson was different. He had killed 500 men just to break into Black Moon Castle. Now is not the time to think about these things, and it is not a good time to blame me. But, if you were to lose this battle, have you ever thought about what would happen to you? It was as if he had sensed the dissatisfaction of those manor owners, so Folson explained with a smile, it's just like how you broke into Black Moon Castle, and you won't let go of the castle's master. That same master would never let you off either, including me. Therefore, we are now in the same boat. You should not blame me, but thank me instead. Everyone's expression changed when they heard that. They knew what Folson said had made sense. Folson had sacrificed 500 men. If they could defeat Black Moon Castle, they would still make a profit. If they failed, not only would their subordinates be captured, their assets would also be confiscated, and even their lives would be lost. Even though they understood, their hearts still ached. Folson is right. We have no way out now, Zhang Guil said with a fierce look on his face. Folson was his old friend. Wilbur took a deep breath as he seemed to have made up his mind. Finally, he gritted his teeth and said, Elder Folson, you did the right thing. But, of course, I wasn't thinking straight. We are at war, so any action is done for the final victory. It's a small price for more rewards. I can accept that. However, are you sure that this magic can destroy Black Moon Castle in one fell swoop? The ocean that Folson had released and the silver snake that in destructive waves were very powerful. However, Black Moon Castle also had a gold tier magical beast and warriors. The outcome was still uncertain. Master Wilbur, you should know that a mage of the same level is equivalent to 10 gold tier warriors. With my current magical power, I can release another silver snake on the surface of that violent sea. The price is to sacrifice those 1,000 men who had surrendered to Black Moon Castle. Even a gold tier warrior would not be able to withstand the bombardment of 2 spells of the same level, not to mention that Black Moon Castle can't have too many gold tier warriors. Folson did not finish his words, but everyone understood what he meant and shivered. It was a large castle, and those warriors must have families. Those powerless people would be swallowed in an instant in the face of such a terrifying sea. If Watson wanted to protect his family, he might get hurt too. If he did not do anything, then he would be the alone one in his command. Then, Folson asked, do you have any other opinions? No one answered him. Elder Folson, I have something to say. Nindi stood up from where she sat with the mages. Her face was pale. Indix was next to her, and she tried to pull her down, but she would have none of it. Elder Folson, I forgot to tell you. I am a member of the Gary family. My family built Black Moon Castle. I implore you to recall your magic and end this battle. I am willing to pay for that. Nindi's eyes were filled with fear and uncertainty. She did not expect an elder from the Mage Guild would be such a cold person. She was worried about the fate of Black Moon Castle. At that moment, she had no hesitation. She had to stand up for the sake of her family. Nindi, are you crazy? Sit down. You can't talk about such things. Indix gave Nindi a crazy look. Even if Nindi were from Black Moon Castle, it would be useless to say it then. Instead, she would put herself in danger. Unfortunately, Nindi had ignored her hint. Elder Folson, as long as you are willing to recall your magic, I am willing to be your servant. I heard that there are rainbow phoenix chicken eggs in Black Moon Castle. I will persuade my family to give you 100, no, 1,000. Nindi looked at Folson, she almost begged him. Nindi? Nindi Gary. Folson murmured, I can't believe that the mages I randomly picked from the Mage Guild would have a relationship with Black Moon Castle. 2 mages in a family is really a blessing from the gods. If it weren't for me, this place would very likely become a famous nobleman's house at the border. What a pity. Folson turned around to look at Wilbur. Master Wilbur, Miss Nindi has promised to give me 1,000 rainbow phoenix chicken eggs. What do you think? Elder Folson, if we can defeat the Black Moon Castle, I promise to give you 2,000 eggs and 2,000 gold coins. Wilbur could only grit his teeth and agree when Folson raised his fee. Unfortunately, the manor owner's offer is more attractive to me. Men, keep an eye on Nindi. Folson flicked the dust off his body and stretched his hand. The 3 male mages immediately stepped forward and pressed Nindi to the ground. Then they bound her with ropes. Nindi's pale face brushed against the ground, and tears streamed down her face. The male mage whispered in her ear, Nindi, don't talk nonsense for now. We'll help you plead for mercy later. Unfortunately, she could no longer hear him. At the Black Moon Castle. It's over, we're finished. The manor owners had allied with the mages to attack us. They've already abandoned us. The 1,000 soldiers who had surrendered knelt on the ground in the castle as they looked at the enormous waves. They were terrified, and they had lost the courage to escape. They had seen how their 500 colleagues had been devoured by magic, and it looked like they were about to meet the same fate. In the castle, Edward and Catherine held each other's hands. They stood at the highest level with pale faces as they looked down at the crashing waves. Perhaps the Black Moon Castle will be destroyed today. My dear, are you afraid? I'm not afraid. Well, I'm just lying to myself, but we can't become a burden to Watson. He was the reason we are living a good life. I never thought that I could live in such a big castle. The gods will bestow blessings on us, and they will also receive rewards. So no matter what the outcome is, I won't complain. Really, I don't have anything to complain about. As Catherine spoke, she closed her eyes and held Edward's shoulders tightly. Behind them, Wendy clenched her teeth as she looked at her masters, who had spoken so dejectedly. Then, she calmed down. She did not blame Watson for what had happened. Her time in Black Moon Castle were the happiest moments in her life, and she believed that young Master Watson would solve their problem. Outside the Black Moon Castle, the golden light in the sky spun anxiously. The 30 men in the Black Moon Iron Cavalry looked sorrowful, they felt helpless. They blocked Watson's path, they hoped that they could use their body to protect their young master for a moment longer. However, in the next second, the waves had already swept over the silver snakes as if they wanted to devour them. The single moment before they were devoured, they heard a strange sound. It was like a huge roar from a bottomless hole that would swallow everything. Chapter 73, Folson in a Panic. 1 minute ago. Watson stood on Black Moon Castle's ground. He watched as the waves engulfed the 500 men. A violent silver snake with an ancient aura rolled inside the waves. This is gold tier magic, he exclaimed. Gold tier magic could cover an area of several kilometers wide, change the weather, and also had the power to destroy the world. A mage of the same level was equivalent to 10 warriors. It was not only a saying, especially for those above the gold tier, but the gaps would become even more apparent. After all, the gold tier was the threshold between an elite and a powerful being who could move the mountains and refill the seas. No one in the Black Moon Castle could withstand a spell of this intensity, including me, Watson thought. The Black Moon Iron Cavalry was beside him, and his parents and family were in the castle. They were the ones he had to protect. The only thing he could do was go to the farm and eat more rainbow phoenix chicken eggs. They should have tens of thousands of eggs, and if he were to eat them all, he might be able to activate the complete phoenix bloodline. Watson thought about that, but before he could take action, a wave suddenly came forth from his body. The tide came from the chaotic elemental magic source in his lower abdomen. The source was like a dry well that longed for the arrival of rain, and the object of its desire was the huge wave that was headed straight at him. The moment the ripple came from the source of magic, Watson had a flash of understanding in his heart. He felt that the source could swallow his opponent's magic. Watson stood still on the spot as he watched the enormous incoming waves that headed straight for him. He did not use his teleportation skill to rush to the farm. Instead, he reached his hand outward. At that moment, "What's going on? Am I dead?" Alan lowered his head and looked at his body. He wiped the sweat off his face. There was only sweat on his face. There was no water element condensed by magic. Just moments before, he had been swallowed by the silver snake on the surface of the violent sea that Folson had summoned. He thought that he was dead for sure. He had not expected that he would be unharmed. At the moment of his death, Alan thought about how he had not reached the gold tier yet. Compared to fear, he felt more regret in his life. All the memories of the past flooded his memories. He thought of the happier times with his family when he was young, and he also recalled the winter 20 years ago. His family had been swallowed by the magical beasts that escaped from the misty forest that bleak winter, and he felt the sadness in his heart. That was the reason he had vowed to train hard to change his fate. He did not want to be like his parents, who were farmers who could not earn money and could not resist the magical beasts. After that, he joined the Miles Manor, where he climbed the ladder until he was the captain of the guards and met Watson again. "Yes, young Master Watson." Alan was a man who appeared stern, but he was a chatterbox. When he was at Miles Manor, he had been pretending to be someone he was not. Ever since he was at Black Moon Castle, he met his fellow guards who shared the same interests as him, and he saw the dawn of a higher level of strength. So he was grateful and respectful toward Watson. Watson was the second person who had filled him with fighting spirit. In his heart, the young man's status was no less than his parents'. Unfortunately, the young master, who should have had a bright future, was about to die along with him. Phew, that was a close call. Luckily, I fused with the source of chaotic elemental magic 2 days ago. At that moment, a familiar young voice echoed from behind him. "Hey!" Alan looked around him. Then he realized that the other guards from the Black Moon Iron Cavalry and Vincent also looked confused. It was as if they did not know what had happened. Everyone looked at Watson, and they saw a thick grey fog surrounding the young man's body. They could see the shadow of a wave that gradually shrunk in the fog. There was a small silver snake in the wave, and its scarlet eyes swayed constantly. Finally, it collapsed in Watson's body and turned into a flash of lightning. It was not only them. The 1,000 allied troops, who had surrendered to them, were sitting on the ground. Some of them were so scared that their pants were wet. At that moment, they looked like they had survived a disaster. "What gold tier magic is this? It looks powerful, but it's only a facade." One of the allied troops crossed his legs carefully so that no one would see that he had peed himself. "Yeah, I thought that we were dead, for sure." Another person wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. "Elder Folson, can you tell me what's going on? I need an explanation." They were about 500 meters away from the Black Moon Castle as Wilbur looked at Folson, who was beside him. The mage said that his gold tier magic could destroy the world. A gold tier mage was equivalent to 10 warriors of the same level, but that was it. That was it. That magic was weak, and Folson had sacrificed 500 innocent men for nothing. If Wilbur were not so thoughtful, he would have slapped him then. Folson was also covered in cold sweat. He muttered with an ugly expression, "This shouldn't have happened. How could it end up like this? Was the magic recorded in the gold tier scroll flawed, or was it because I only have half of it, so it can only release a magical phantom?" He watched as the monstrous waves entered Black Moon Castle before it disappeared like a dream bubble. He did not see it when Watson had swallowed the waves. He thought the magic had dissipated on its own. Folson turned the incomplete gold tier magic scroll in his hand over and over again. The scroll recorded the complete magic chant and half of the magic operation path. After he confirmed that there was no problem with it, he gritted his teeth and said, "There is no problem. Perhaps it is because the magic operation path method is not complete, which causes a shorter attack range. After all, the spell had swallowed 500 men. It's not like it's powerless. Everyone, please give me another chance. This time, I will cast it at close range. There is absolutely no problem." After he said that, he glanced at the side and saw the few mages who had followed him to that mission. He focused his eyes on the tied-up Nindi. "Take Nindi with you and go to the Black Moon Castle gate with me." "Yes, Elder." They dared not disobey Folson's order, so the mages could only brace themselves and take Nindi with them. They followed Folson to the gate and prayed that he would not sacrifice them when he released his magic if he did not have enough power. "Master Wilbur, what should we do now?" As soon as Folson left, there were only about 10 manor owners and Nightingale at that location. "Let's go and take a look." Wilbur gritted his teeth, patted his horse, and followed the mages. Their manor's elites were all there, and there was no way out. If they were to fail, they would not be able to escape, so they could only rely on Folson. The other manor owners, including Zangwil, followed suit. Nightingale held the basket in her hand as she continued to peel the rainbow phoenix chicken eggs. She put them into her mouth and restored her calm appearance. She used teleportation to stay behind them. "I can feel the terror of the magic just now, even I could not stop it." Was it because of the incomplete scroll that led to a shorter magic range? Or did Watson do something about it? Nightingale muttered in a low voice. She felt that Watson had more secrets than she could ever imagine. "Fortunately, Watson is fine. I was ready to attack Folson just now. Now let me take a good look at Watson. What other trump cards does he have?" Nightingale knew that Count Sylvan sent her to the border to witness a test. If Black Moon Castle were to lose its owners that day, it would prove that Watson had no value. He could only gain Sylvan's favor by winning the war. She was not supposed to help either side, but she was pretty short-sighted. She had eaten many Watson's rainbow phoenix chicken eggs, so she wanted him to win. Anyway, Count Sylvan only wanted a result. So even if I help Watson, it shouldn't be a big deal. Well, Count Sylvan will forgive me. Chapter 74, Are you done with your nonsense? At the Black Moon Castle entrance. "You are the master of Black Moon Castle." Folson stood in the ruins and looked into the castle. His gaze lingered over the 1,000 allied troops who had surrendered before it landed on Watson. "Yes, that's me." Watson nodded as his sky-blue eyes burned with flames. The person was in a long robe, and he held a staff and a scroll. Watson recognized her as the mage who had released the gold tier spell. If it were not for the source of chaotic elemental magic that he had fused, which could absorb another magic, Black Moon Castle would have been destroyed. "Look at who this is." Folson waved his hand, and a few male mages behind him immediately stepped forward and pushed the tied-up Nindi to the front. "She is." Watson's pupils constricted. He felt as if the girl was familiar. It was as if he had seen her somewhere. "Nindi. Are you Nindi?" At that moment, Vincent, who stood nearby, walked forward in excitement as he looked at the girl in front of him carefully. After a moment, Vincent seemed to have confirmed something, and his lips began to tremble. I must be dreaming. Nindi, why are you with these people? Nindi had left home a few years ago for her studies. She wanted to become a powerful mage. Unfortunately, the Gary family did not receive any news from her for so many years, and she rarely wrote to her family. Vincent did not know what had happened to her, so he did not expect to see Nindi there. Did she study under Folson? Eldest brother, I joined the Mage Guild in Monty Town a while ago. Elder Folson is a silver rank mage in the guild. If I had known he had wanted to destroy your castle, I wouldn't have followed him here. I would have tried my best to dissuade him. It's all my fault that this has happened. Nindi had tears in her eyes. She felt guilt. She was very excited to see Vincent, of course, but she had so many regrets. It's okay. It's good that you're back. It's good that you're back. Vincent continued to shake his head. Are you done with your nonsense? Have you forgotten that I'm still here? Folson was speechless when he saw Vincent and Nindi flaunted their kinship as if no one else was around. They were at war, could they give him some respect? Oh, I almost forgot about you. Vincent turned his head, and his face turned cold again. Speaking of which, I have to thank you. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been able to see my second sister. Since you've confirmed that Ninzi is from Black Moon Castle, then everything is easy. I'll give you two choices. First, kneel and surrender right now and throw your weapons away. I'll let Nindi go. Otherwise, be prepared to collect the corpses of your family members. Second, I'll cast a spell again and kill all of you. It's your choice. Folson placed his blue staff on Nindi's face and sneered. The sharp stone on his staff drew a bloody mark on the girl's snow-white face. Stop! Vincent's expression changed, but before he could say anything, Nindi shouted, Eldest brother, don't believe him. Elder Folson just told those manor owners that he would never let you go. Even if you surrender, they will kill you and me after they reap all the benefits. Shut up! Folson growled as he kicked Nindi. He brought her there to be a hostage and forced Black Moon Castle to be afraid. How could he threaten them after what she had said? The people in Black Moon Castle would probably fight to their death. He had spoken everything in vain. Folson was a little regretful. Why was he so careless? He should have gagged the girl. At that time, the manor owners and Nightingale were also there. They stood behind Folson. Master Wilbur, it's been a long time since we last met. Black Moon Castle has no animosity with you, and I used to work in your manor. So why would you treat us like this? Vincent was sad when he noticed Wilbur. Why would I treat you like this? You should have predicted this day would come when you rejected your engagement with my daughter. You're standing in our path to wealth, and you're also in the way of the other manor owners. You'll need to die. Wilder's expression was cold. He turned his head away. He did not dare to look at Vincent. It's useless to say anything anymore. Elder Folson, do it. I hope that this time, you won't disappoint me. Folson took a deep breath, raised his staff, and patted the small bag on his waist with his other hand. With a flash of light, a golden potion appeared in his hand. He pulled the cork out with a pained expression. This is what I get after working so hard on the missions at the Mage Guild. It's supposed to be a life-saving item, and I didn't expect to use it here. Eldest brother, you have to be careful. Nindi looked at the thing in Folson's hand. She turned her head and said, this is a gold tier potion. It's a berserk potion called the Golden Demon. It's a treasure that only the guild elders can exchange with points. It can raise a mage's level to gold tier for a short period, but it can only last for an hour. There is a side effect: they will be weakened for the next few months and will be bedbound. You know quite a lot. Folson chuckled. Before Folson could show off the powerful potion in his hand, Nindi had taken the words from his lips. However, he did not mind it. He drank the potion. Even if you know about this potion, there is no way to stop it. Folson's level was not high enough, so he had released a gold tier spell with the blood sacrifice of 500 men. If he became a gold tier mage, then he could cast a spell on his own. You should also be careful of his staff, the Heart of the Ocean. It is a silver tier weapon. It has a 50% increase in the effectiveness of water element spells. His best spell is a silver tier mine cannonball. He can summon 100 of them at the same time. Each mine has an explosion range of 5 meters. Also, the backpack on his waist is a silver tier spatial storage magic tool. Its inside is. Nindi looked at Folson as she spoke. Shut up. Folson could not stand it anymore. He tolerated Nindi's introduction for the potion's effects, but he could not stand it when she exposed his background. He immediately growled, "Cover her mouth." The male mages went to cover the girl's mouth, but Nindi bit them hard. She broke free and twisted her body backward as she shouted, "Listen to me. There are 10 bronze scrolls and more than 20 iron tier scrolls in his bag. They are all one-time spells. Apart from that, there are also a few bottles of recovery potions. This is not a secret in the Mage Guild. You have to be on guard. Enough, you're all a bunch of trash. Take her and keep her far away from here. You have no sense of judgment. Who told you to bring her here? A bunch of good-for-nothings. They are all good-for-nothings." Folson's chest rose and fell violently. He was so angry that his lungs almost exploded. "Weren't you the one who wanted Nindi here?" The other mages did not dare to speak their mind when they realized that Folson was furious. They could only drag Nindi away obediently. "No one can disturb me now. Black Moon Castle, since you want to resist so stubbornly, then die." Folson touched his chest to calm his anger before he began to chant. "Great Sea God, you are the incarnation of the water element. I am Folson, your humble servant, and I offer my faith to you. I hope that you can lower your divine power and turn into a silver snake that can destroy the world." Gold tier spell Silver Serpent on the Raging Sea. The violent sea appeared with a giant silver snake and swept toward Black Moon Castle. However, Watson had walked forward before the whole spell was formed. Then, he waved his hand and absorbed the violent sea. They did not even see a single wave. "Are you done with your nonsense?" Watson scratched his ears and felt the surging power in the source of magic. "If you're done with your nonsense, then you can die." Chapter 75, Admit Your Mistake. How could this be? Folson was stunned. The manor owners behind him twitched, and their expressions darkened. They had followed Folson because he had made a solemn vow. However, it seemed like his so-called gold tier magic was not powerful at all. They did not even see a single ripple on Watson's body. "Elder Folson," Wilbur held back his anger as he opened his mouth. He did not know what to say. If Zangwill had not invited Folson, he would have thought that Folson was a spy on Watson's side and was there to mess with him. Impossible. This is impossible. Folson let out a strange cry. He opened his arms and chanted with blood-red eyes, "Great water element, listen to my call and become an indestructible cannonball. Silver tier spell mine cannonball." As he chanted, 100 water balls the size of a human head appeared around Folson's body. Silver-white lightning swirled around them. The blue water element and the lightning reflected each other. One could feel the terrifying power contained within it with just one look. It was like how the fire element could control temperature and cast ice-type spells. The essence of a water element spell was to control water molecules. That included evaporating water into clouds to create lightning. So, therefore, lightning was part of the water element. At that moment, the veins on Folson's forehead had appeared. It was apparent that he was under a lot of pressure. He had cast 2 gold-level spells in a day. Even if he drank the gold-tier potion, it would still be hard on his body. The blood in his throat boiled, and it seemed that he would need to spit it out in the next moment. Sea mines and cannonballs are firing at the same time. So let's see how you'll dodge them this time. Folson pointed at Watson, and the 100 mine cannonballs immediately flew in a beautiful trajectory and attacked Watson from all directions. The mine cannonballs passed through the air as electric arcs spread out. There was a burning smell, even the earth was charred black as it cracked. The Black Moon Iron Cavalry stood beside Watson, including Vincent, and they looked nervous. They took a step forward as they wanted to protect Watson, but the young man stopped them. It's okay. I can handle this type of magic. Watson watched as the water mine cannonballs came straight at him. He stood still and allowed the cannonballs to hit his body. The water balls condensed with thunder and lightning touched his body and burst like an imaginary bubble. They made a pop-pop sound before his body absorbed them completely. Sparks flickered on his body for a moment before it was completely extinguished. More than 80 water mine cannonballs landed on Watson's body. The remaining water mine cannonballs missed their target and hit the ground near him. The soil near him exploded with a loud rumble. It had left a deep pit several meters wide on the ground. It was a demonstration of the power of each water mine cannonball. Wow! Folson could not take it anymore. He spat out a large mouthful of blood and almost fell onto the ground. He finally realized that it was not a problem with his gold tier spells, they were not powerless. However, Watson had absorbed them completely. It seemed like he could swallow a spell that covered several kilometers radius and contained destructive power. What kind of monster was he? Young man, are you wearing platinum tier armor? Folson asked. You mean this shirt? Watson lowered his head and looked at the shirt on his body. Well, it's about the same. He had transformed the shirt into an ancient knight's armor during the battle. After that, the armor had changed back into a shirt. The black and shiny fabric was not damaged even after it was hit with the water mine cannonballs. It was no wonder Folson was doubtful about it. Unfortunately, the shirt was only gold tier armor. It could absorb gold tier spells because of the source of chaotic elemental magic in his body. Watson's words were ambiguous because he did not want to reveal his trump card. It was really platinum tier armor. Folson thought he had guessed correctly when Watson did not admit or deny it. He took a deep breath. Platinum tier equipment was rare in that world. There were very few platinum tier elites in the kingdom, and the number of platinum tier equipment was even fewer. One could imagine how precious those items were. So what did it mean when the owner of a small castle at the border had some platinum tier equipment? Folson thought about it and broke out in cold sweat. Black Moon Castle was much larger than the other manors, and it was guarded by a rainbow phoenix chicken and a gold tier magical beast. He had not thought about it before, but after he linked everything together, he came to a terrifying conclusion. Was Black Moon Castle a secret faction supported by nobles who wanted to expand their influence at the border? When he thought of that, he felt a little regretful. He had lost his mind because of the manor owner's generosity. If he had known that Watson was from a significant background, he would not have accepted the mission. However, he had no choice. Watson would not let him go. If he did not want to die, then he could only resist. His right hand pressed on the small bag on his waist. Folson wiped the blood from the corner of his lips and gritted his teeth. Whoosh! One could hear the sound of the wind when more than 10 magic scrolls flew out from the bag on his waist and burned in the air. Some of them flickered with a bronze luster, while most of them emitted a black iron-like color. Dozens of scrolls covered the air as a long wall of scrolls formed in front of him and Watson. Watson was not worried at all. His expression did not even change as he walked toward Folson quietly and pushed the bronze-level scroll closest to him casually. The spell carved on the scroll was a bronze-level water spear. Unfortunately, before the thick and long water spear could form, it broke and turned into basic water elements that Watson absorbed. That scene made everyone's heart skip a beat. They did not dare to say anything or used their hands to touch the powerful scroll. That was too daring. In just a few minutes, Watson had managed to push all the scrolls away. Scrolls without magical power were like pieces of cloth that had lost their vitality. They fell to the ground quietly. At that moment, Watson was already in front of Folson. He was not as tall as the older mage, so he had to look up to the man. However, everyone felt as if it was Watson who was looking down on Folson. The older mage had the same feeling. He felt intense pressure from Watson's eyes before he knelt unwillingly on the ground. "Do you still want to resist?" Watson's voice was not loud, but it was like thunder that echoed in Folson's ears. It caused his body to tremble. The increase in magic power brought the gold tier potion had dissipated quite a bit, so his body had begun to weaken. As time passed, he would become weaker and weaker, and his strongest attacks would not be able to harm Watson. Based on those 2 points, there was only one thing he could do. Folson took 2 steps backward and raised the blue staff in his hand up high. "Do you think this is all my strength?" "No, you're wrong. I haven't used my true trump card yet. This next move is my trump card. I had not wanted to use it. Since you're forcing my hand, then let's all die together." Watson's expression changed when he saw Folson laughed maniacally toward the sky. He cautiously took 2 steps backward. Finally, Folson took 2 scrolls from his bag and stuck them on his body. Then, he used the sky blue magic wings on his back to make a hasty retreat from the Black Moon Castle. That was his so-called ultimate move. Did that not mean that he had run away from the fight? Watson was stunned, the others were also speechless. It turned out that Folson was only bluffing, he had no trump cards at all. "You still want to run? Where can you run to?" Watson shook his head helplessly and waved at the sky. The golden flash, who had been circling the sky, immediately turned into a golden ray of light and caught up with Folson. With a gentle wave of his claws, the beast slammed the mage into the ground. His claws, which were bigger than a human, pressed down on Folson. The golden flash's 3 heads got close to Folson and drooled on him. Folson was so scared that he shouted in a panic, Don't come close to me. I still have a trump card. I really do have a trump card. Roar. Golden Flash roared softly. Folson felt as if he had been hit by the storm. His hair was messy, and his screams became more tragic. "I was wrong. I don't have any ultimate move. I'm lying. Please don't eat me. I apologize. I shouldn't have attacked Black Moon Castle. Please let me go. As long as you let me go, I'm willing to do anything." Chapter 76, Evil Must Be Killed. How could a person be so shameless? The Watson and the other manor owners were so angry that their eyes turned black when they saw Folson begged for mercy. Who on earth did they invite to the battle? Where was his dignity as a silver-tier mage and his backbone as a human? "Master Wilbur, what should we do now?" A fat manor owner, who stood beside Wilbur, asked him in a low voice. He looked panicked. They had lost. Folson had been captured, and most of their men had died. Some had surrendered, but they had nothing. They were not enough to fill the gaps between the Golden Flash's teeth. "What else can we do?" Wilbur gritted his teeth. He looked a little dejected. He turned his head to look at Nightingale, who stood beside him. The girl had watched the show unfold as she enjoyed her rainbow phoenix chicken eggs. "Miss Nightingale, please help us. You don't have to attack Black Moon Castle, I understand that it is not realistic. But, perhaps you can help us leave this place. I'm willing to give you half of the manor's assets." Even if Nightingale was willing to attack Black Moon Castle, Wilbur did not think they would win. After all, Nightingale was only a gold-tier warrior. Black Moon Castle had 2 gold-tier warriors, Watson and Golden Flash, and Watson had a white gold armor. Half of the manor's assets? I'll think about it. Nightingale put the peeled egg into her mouth and gently touched her lips with her fingers. She appeared hesitant. "Miss Nightingale, this is a request from the Wilbur List family. If you agree, you'll be in our family's good graces," Wilbur said through gritted teeth. If Nightingale could send him back to the manor, he would take Monica and the rest of his assets and leave the border. Once he left the border, he could settle anywhere in the kingdom. It was a huge kingdom, and Watson would have a lot of trouble finding him. This is also our request. The other manor owners understood Wilbur's meaning, they bowed their heads at the same time. Even though it was difficult for them to accept the loss of half of their assets, they want to keep their lives. It is a good offer, but I don't want to agree to it. Nightingale glanced at the owners, her eyes flashed with deep disdain and contempt as she spoke so seriously. Why? Wilbur was anxious. Because I don't like you. Is this reason enough? As a shadow guard, Nightingale had killed many bad men. She had seen the young girls who were humiliated to their deaths in those noblemen's houses. She had also seen them treat their slaves like animals and refugees who were starved to their death. Wealth bred evil and power inflated men. Some noblemen could not be called human. Even though those manor owners in front of them were not that bad, they had joined forces for their own selfish desires. They wanted to destroy their eyesore Black Moon Castle. It was obvious that they were not good people. Nightingale looked down on them from the bottom of her heart. What kind of reason was that? Wilbur and the other manor owners looked at each other and saw the anger in each other's eyes. Wilbur lowered his voice, and he looked cold as he said, Miss Nightingale, you are a guard sent by the border count to help us. Is it really a good idea for you to be so willful? Aren't you afraid that the count would punish you if he heard about what had happened? I know what you're thinking, but you don't have the right to use Count Sylvan to pressure me. Nightingale's expression was calm. It seems like you wanted a rational reason, but it is very simple. If I help you, I can only get half of everyone's assets. On the contrary, if I don't help you but support Watson instead, I can get all of your assets. The manor owners' expression on their faces darkened. No, 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 Miss Nightingale. Even if you do help me, you can't get all of their assets. At most, 20%. That's the limit. At that moment, Watson walked toward Nightingale and waved his hand repeatedly. Nightingale did not do anything. She only ate some rainbow phoenix chicken eggs and sat at the sideline, and yet, she wanted so many benefits. She must be dreaming. Why does it matter? But, Watson, you're too stingy. Nightingale puffed her cheeks in dissatisfaction. At least 80%. Otherwise, I'll send these people away, and you'll get nothing. Also, you should understand that I'm not taking their assets for myself but to offer them to the border count. Since the battle had attracted Count Sylvan's attention, he would expect some benefits from the battle. Only 30%, and no more. At least 75%. Well, 40%. Watson's expression became serious. That is my bottom line. If Miss Nightingale disagrees, then please take the rainbow phoenix chicken eggs and return to the fairy castle. From now on, we are even. You are no longer our honored guest at Black Moon Castle, and I will no longer accept the border count's invitation. All right, 40% then. Nightingale gritted her teeth and said, Watson, you're really an idiot. Then, she casually pulled the nearest farmer off his horse. I've helped you with your work. You have nothing more to say this time, right? Nightingale's words came from the bottom of her heart. She wanted to help Watson and gave the assets to Count Sylvan for that reason. What would Watson do with those manor owners' assets? Black Moon Castle was not very powerful at that moment. If he got more assets, it would only attract other people's envious eyes. Count Sylvain would be wary of him, so he might as well give the Count those assets in exchange for this protection and favor. On the one hand, he had the assets that he could not control, and on the other hand, he would have the protection of a mighty one. How would one choose? She believed that Watson was a smart person, so of course, he would know. When he saw Nightingale's expression, Watson could already guess her thoughts. However, he had other things to consider as well. The border count had given the battle his tacit approval. He called it a test, and he even wanted benefits after he got Watson into trouble. What was so good about it? It had nothing to do with whether he was wise or not. It was about principles, and Watson could not treat the border count as an enemy like the other manor owners. He also had no intention to curry any favor with them. He understood the border count's thoughts. Lord Sylvan must have wanted to test Black Moon Castle's strength when he learned that the other manor owners wanted to go against them. That was the count's perspective, but Watson did not like it. He truly disliked it. It was a lofty attitude, and he would crush it eventually. He would collect that debt soon. Furthermore, Nightingale had missed the point. He had the fusion magic, so the benefits of those additional assets were far greater than to leave them to the Count. Strength, resources, talents. Watson knew he needed those things, especially after the latest battle. Men, arrest Folson and these manor owners. Watson waved his hand. He had made up his mind. Some of the Black Moon Iron cavalrymen nodded respectfully. Then, they went to the manor owners and tied them up. Then, Vincent led the rest of the men back, and they brought the mages and Nindy with them. "Young Master Watson, may I know what we should do with these people?" Alan, leader of the Black Moon Knights, asked as he walked toward Watson. He was very dissatisfied with those manor owners. He wished that he could beat them up. He almost died because of them, but Watson did not give him a direct order, so he could not act rashly. The world's rules prevented them from killing their captives. Their role was to exchange their lives for benefits. He believed that Watson would let those people go after they gave him their assets. What a pity! Watson did not know what was in Alan's mind. He waved his hand with a cold expression. "Tie them up so that they can't struggle. Then, take them outside and kill them. Black Moon Castle has a principle, and that is to kill our enemies' leaders. They had initiated this battle, so let them pay the price for their actions." Chapter 77, Deterrence at the Border. "Young Master Watson, are you serious?" Alan had a strange look on his face. Even if he hated those farmers, he thought that Watson would let them go after obtaining their assets. He did not think that Watson would order them to be killed. After all, Watson was still a child. "Watson, please don't mind me for meddling in your business, but killing these people will cause more chaos," Vincent, who had brought Nindy back with him, said worriedly. "That's right, Watson." Nindy rubbed her arm, which had become sore from the ropes that bound. She glanced around with a conflicted look in her eyes. "Forget about these manor owners. Folson is an elder of the Mage Guild in Monty Town. They will not let him go easily. Plus, they have already lost their power. So let their people pay their ransom and forget about this matter." Nindy had agreed with Watson's decision discreetly. She also felt that those people deserved to die. However, she understood the world's rules, and sometimes they would have to compromise with reality. "Do you all think so too?" When he heard his brother and sister's suggestions, Watson did not express his opinion. Instead, he turned to look at the Black Moon Knights, including Alan. "We shall do as you say, young Master Watson. We do not have the right to judge this matter. You are the favored son of heaven, a rare genius that the kingdom had seen in a few hundred years. My admiration for you is like a torrential river that never ends. Therefore, in my opinion, you are always right." Alan babbled on and attracted the other men's disdain. That guy was too good at flattery. Watson looked past Alan as if the man had farted. Then, he looked at the vice-captain list. "I will obey your orders, young Master Watson." List knelt on the ground. He did not say anything else. He was the exact opposite of Alan, who appeared serious on the surface, but he was actually a sultry man with a rich heart. List looked gentle and refined, but he usually did not say much. The other Black Moon Knights followed his lead. They knelt in front of Watson. The earth trembled as the armor on their knees hit the ground. "We will obey young Master Watson's orders." "Very good." Watson nodded. He realized that his effort to nurture those people did not go to waste. They looked like an army. "Well, as I've said earlier, take these people out and kill them. You may think that my decision is cruel and irrational, but you can't rely on compromises if you want to survive in this world. The enemy attacked us first, so do we compromise with them and let them go? Then, the next time, they will bring more people. And should we compromise again? If we do it once, then there will be a second time, and one day, we will not be able to compromise anymore. Watson spoke with confidence and courage. He did not look like a child but more like a king who gave a speech before the war. His men looked at him and subconsciously ignored his age. At that moment, they felt Watson's charisma as their leader. At the same time, they thought about Watson's words. The young man was right. If Wilbur and the others did so many evil deeds, and their punishment was only some of their assets, other parties would think that Black Moon Castle was merciful but weak. More people might get the same idea and attack them next. So they had to kill all their intruders and let their blood flow like a river so that other people would be afraid of them and not act so rashly. However, since ancient times, the rule of war had always been to exchange captives for assets. Thus, Watson's actions would probably bring a brutal reputation, especially since he was only a child. Furthermore, it would affect his future development. I can guess your thoughts, but why should we care about other people's opinions? Perhaps we needed to do that if we're weak. But when we're strong enough, our Black Moon Knights will leave footsteps all over the world, and they will tremble under our gazes. Those who have wronged us will have to beg for our forgiveness. We will spare those who submit to us and kill those who disobey us. Watson's blue eyes contained the sea, and at that moment, they also contained the sky. I have a wish, a great wish. I want Black Moon Castle to be the #1 faction at the borders so that the people in my territory will never go hungry. I want to wipe out all things evil so that this land will not be abused and there will be no war. I also want to become a king here, as well as the king of the world. Veni, Vidi, Vici. That was something that Watson had liked very much in his previous life. Emperor Caesar had once said that, which could be translated to as I came, I saw, I conquered. Veni, Vidi, Vici. Alan chewed on those words as he shouted. His face had a strange glow. Veni, Vidi, Vici. List shouted with him. Then, the other Black Moon Knights raised their fists and placed them on their chests. Their voices had been relatively low when they shouted the slogan before it finally converged into a loud noise that shook 100 meters. Vincent also muttered those words in his heart. He felt an oppressive air that transcended everything. If Watson was born into the royal family, he would definitely become the emperor. No other prince or princess would be able to compete with him. I'm sure of it. No, even if Watson was not a royal family member, he would still be king. He was his own king, and he was also the king of his territory and everything that he could see. My little brother always likes to do things that are out of my expectations. He even dares to say things like becoming the king of the world. If His Majesty were to hear this, he would be beheaded at least 10 times or more. However, it doesn't feel bad. Vincent shrugged before he sighed. He did not intend to dissuade Watson anymore. On the contrary, he was proud to have such a little brother. Nindy was dumbfounded. She had not returned home for a long time, and she still thought of Watson as that runny-nosed kid. When she saw Watson, she had the urge to kneel and worship him. That was the same feeling as when she went to the royal city a few years ago and saw the king when he made his speech on the stage. The rainbow phoenix chicken egg in Nightingale's hand fell to the ground. She did not care about it. She stared at Watson in a daze, but there was no disdain in her eyes. She did not think that Watson was overestimating himself. However, there was regret. She regretted that she did not fight in the battle. She also lamented that she did not send a message to the border count to cancel the test and help Black Moon Castle defend against the invasion. Those who could say such words Veni, Vidi, Vici would definitely not be weaker than the border count in the future, especially since Watson was already a gold tier warrior at the age of 10. I've said what I needed to say. Get to it. Watson turned around, and Black Moon Knights stood up, one after another. Every 2 knights were responsible for a manor owner. They dragged more than 10 men, including Folson, to the castle's collapsed walls. At that moment, the Black Moon Knights carried out the orders strictly, and no one questioned them. The manor owners cried and begged for mercy. Don't kill me, I'm willing to pay. Is 1,000 gold coins enough? Please, I don't want to die yet. Among them, Wilbur begged the loudest, Vincent, save me, Vincent. Have you forgotten that you used to work in my manor? Who took you in when you were at your lowest? You haven't forgotten, have you? Let me go, I'll betroth Monica to you, and I'll give you the manor too. Vincent turned his gaze away. He did not say anything, nor did he look at Wilbur. He had asked Wilbur the same question: why did he attack the castle? Wilbur's answer was that anyone who stood in his way would die, and his answer to Wilbur was the same. I heard your name is Wilbur List? What a coincidence, my name is List too. List was in charge of the execution. He stroked the snow-white blade. Young man, since everyone calls me List, please forgive me. Pfft. Before he could finish his sentence, List's hand moved swiftly with a silver light, and Wilbur's head flew. List shook the blood off his blade and looked up at the sky. From now on, there's only one List. After that, the other Black Moon Knights followed suit. Folson was the last person to be executed. Before he died, he had shouted, I'm an elder with the Mage Guild. You have no right to kill me. You have no right then, a sword pierced his chest. The ground was covered in blood, the metallic smell rose in the air under the bright sunlight. It was the 10th day of the 9th month of the 221st year of the Holy Dragon calendar. Some manor owners had joined forces and sent their allied troops to attack Black Moon Castle. Unfortunately, they died on the same day, and the alliance leader and Folson were beheaded. The news spread across the border like a storm and caused every farmer to feel fear from the bottom of their hearts. Chapter 78, A Fusion of Maids. It had been 3 days since Black Moon Castle had defeated the manor's allied troops. Young Master Watson, these are the spoils of war sent by Wilbur List Manor. They include 1,000 iron tier magical beasts, 100 bronze tier magical beasts, 150 caddies of iron tier ores, and 10 caddies of bronze tier ores. There are more than 100 servants in the manor, including Wilbur's daughter, Monica Hope. List held a list in his hand as he stood in front of Watson. He stood in front of the Black Moon Castle gate that had collapsed into ruins. At that moment, there were more than 1,000 men with their sleeves rolled up and their faces covered in dust as they carried huge dark jade slabs to be repaired. Those 1,000 men were soldiers from the Allied troops who had surrendered a few days ago. They were part of the 5,000-men army that had attacked Black Moon Castle. They had survived the battle and became the castle's slaves. They did not dare to disobey when they saw how the Black Moon Knights slaughtered the manor owners and Folson. Other than that, there was another reason why they did not dare to resist the order. When List spoke, the servants from Wilbur List Manor had escorted Monica to Black Moon Castle. Their hands were bound, and they either had to push the carts with oars or lead the magical beasts. They had looked dejected, especially Monica, who walked in front of the group. She bit her pale lips as she stared at the castle. That was her second time there, and unlike the last time, she did not wear a fancy hat, nor did she use heavy makeup on her face. She was only in a black gown with a light veil. It was relatively plain. There was a white flower pinned on her chest, a symbol of her sacrifice to her father. The news of her father's death had reached the manor a day ago. When Monica heard the news, she almost fainted. The servants in the manor were also in a panic and had prepared to escape. However, Watson had sent the Black Moon Knights, and they immediately dismissed those people's thoughts. The Black Moon Knights warriors were at least at the bronze tier. The manor's allied troops had already taken all the elites from the manor to join the battle. Their prisoners in the dungeon were inclined to join Black Moon Castle when they heard about the battle's victor. They even volunteered to help control the people in the manor and count their assets. Each manor had the same story, so Black Moon Castle had to subdue more than a dozen of those manors before they could do anything else. Over the past few days, Watson had given orders to empty all the manors and take over their assets, including their people. So, naturally, they had taken the Wilbur List Manor first. Watson waved his hand when he saw the gloomy expression on the Wilbur List Manor's people as they walked toward Black Moon Castle. It was an indication that List should not speak. After he took a few steps forward, he stopped in front of Monica and bowed elegantly. "Miss Monica, we meet again." "Watson. You devil. Why? Why did you kill my father?" Monica was like an angry lion. Her face was pale, and her large almond-shaped eyes burned with flames. If she had not been tied up, she would have rushed toward Watson and bitten him. "Be careful, young Master Watson." List put the list in his hand away to protect Watson carefully. The chaos attracted the attention of the slaves, the soldiers who had surrendered, as they moved the stones. Most of them only glanced at Monica and shook their heads in pity. They walked forward and took the ore materials from Wilbur List Manor's carts, and they also led magical beasts away. "Hello, young Master Watson. I'm a bronze tier guard from Wilbur List Manor. My name is Gorman." A middle-aged man with short hair and a lightning-shaped scar on his forehead walked forward from the Wilbur List Manor group. He knelt in front of Watson. "These are all the people from Wilbur List Manor. Young Master, please count them all. I've long heard of Black Moon Castle's good name, and I've long wanted to seek refuge here. However, my master drugged my food and threw me into the dungeon before I could leave. He should not have done that, and facts had proven that I was right." Gorman had played an important role in consolidating assets from the Wilbur List Manor. His great name was not unknown at the border. They said that he was good at using water elemental combat aura to generate lightning, and some even called him the Green Lightning. He was a bronze tier warrior, but his speed was at the silver tier. "Tui." After Gorman finished speaking, someone spat at him. Monica's personal maid, Capella, who had short, fluffy yellow hair and freckles on her nose, looked at Gorman as if she was looking at a dog. "Gorman, you're a disgusting man. Master is dead, and we are very sad, especially Lady Monica. How dare you bow to the enemy? Do you think that Black Moon Castle won't be wary of you after you become their dog? When Master locked you in the dungeon, I proposed to kill you, but he was merciful and did not do it." Miss Capella is right. A few of the maids agreed with the freckled maid. "We will never bow to Black Moon Castle. We're here to take revenge for Master. We will not retreat until we kill everyone in Black Moon Castle. We will fight until our last moment, and we will shed our last drop of blood." Gorman's face darkened when he heard what they said. He was a strong warrior, and he cared for his reputation. "Are you courting death?" Gorman stood up as his eyes flashed with unconcealed killing intent. He wanted to wring the necks of those maidservants in front of him. Those maidservants were not afraid at all, they raised their heads proudly as if they were not scared of death. It was as if Gorman's actions were exactly what they had wanted. "Leave this to me." Watson stopped Gorman, who was about to make a move, and stood in front of the maidservants. He observed them and said, "Wilbur and the other manor owners attacked Black Moon Castle. I was forced to fight back. I can only say that I'm very sorry for their deaths. However, it had nothing to do with you. If you are willing to put down your hatred, then I'm willing to spare your lives. You are not only young, but you are arrogant and stupid as well. Sooner or later, you will die. Do you think we will believe your words?" A few of the maids looked disgusted. When Black Moon Castle had taken over the other manors, Watson's saying "I came, I saw, I conquered" was also praised by everyone. Many thought that he was a natural-born emperor, his identity and age could not restrict him. Watson was already a gold-tier warrior at the age of 10, and the establishment of Black Moon Castle was the best proof anyone needed. It's a pity that you made the wrong choice. Watson sighed as he pointed at the maids in front of him. Swoosh! There was a soft sound. The 6 maids had shouted in front of him. According to the nobleman's standards, each woman was a laundry maid, a kitchen maid, a scullery maid, a dairy maid, a casual maid, and a personal maid. Other than Capella, the other 5 women's bodies turned into a ray of light and fused into Capella's body. Capella's eyes stiffened. She twisted her neck with difficulty and lowered her head toward Watson. Young Master Watson. Very good. Stand at the side. Watson nodded casually. The fusion magic could fuse everything. Since it could fuse weapons, minerals, and magical beasts, it meant that it could fuse humans as well. The fusion would not only increase the person's abilities, but they would obey their master's every word as well. What is this? Magic? Sorcery? Monica stared at all of that with her eyes wide open. Her legs trembled when she saw 6 humans become one. That was too terrifying. The other servants had been acting with righteous indignation, but they were silent at that moment. Even Gorman swallowed his saliva. Watson and List remained calm, and then there were also the 1,000 surrendered soldiers who were hard at work. Those soldiers looked at Monica and sighed. How stupid! She still dares to provoke young Master Watson? We don't even dare to bother him. He is not only powerful, but he has also mastered terrifying magic. Chapter 79, A Huge Harvest. Name, Capella. Position, all-rounded maid. Ability, combines starch washing, cooking, tailoring, and other skills into one, a perfect maid who can perform any household chores. Strength, Iron Tier. After Watson fused the maids, the corresponding message appeared within his sight. He knew that fusion magic could fuse humans. However, he could only fuse with people whose strength was inferior to his. For example, Watson was a gold tier warrior, so he could only fuse with people ranked below that. Of course, those who had already been fused would not have the same restriction. For example, the Golden Flash was a product of fusion. So, it would not matter to Watson if the Golden Flash surpassed his strength and became a platinum tier monster. Watson had never used the fusion magic to fuse with his subordinates because it meant that he would forcefully change the fate of others. It was not something he could do. However, those people were different, they were his enemies, and they did not want to surrender. Therefore, he did not feel burdened when he fused them. With the fusion system, this world is like a game to me. Unfortunately, with my current strength, I can't fuse with a platinum tier elite. At the very least, I'll have to wait until I become a diamond tier warrior. Watson muttered to himself and sighed. If it were not for the system's restriction, he would not have needed to pretend to be polite with the people at the border. Instead, he would have accepted their invitation and then fused them so that they would be his underlings. I'll ask you again, do you surrender? Watson asked the people from Wilbur List Manor. We surrender. You are now our master, young Master Watson. I only hope that you won't use magic to turn us into puppets. Those people responded hurriedly and cautiously. They were not afraid if Watson's magic would destroy them, and that showed their integrity. However, they did not want to be part of Watson's fusion system. When they saw Capella's obedience toward Watson, it was apparent that her thoughts had been twisted to a certain extent. A fate as a puppet was worse than death. At that moment, they began to see Watson differently. He was no longer a cute child but a devil. Miss Monica, what about you? She had kept quiet. Monica bit her lips as she lowered her head dejectedly. As long as you let me go, you can do whatever you want. She no longer appeared arrogant and supreme, she knew who was the real master in that situation. The arrogance that she had developed in Wilbur List Manor had been suppressed by fear. Very good. Watson nodded and revealed a shy smile that matched his young age. List, bring Miss Monica to the castle. She will be a maid in our manor. As for the others, Gorman can join the Black Moon Knight and receive a set of bronze tier armor and a liger later. The others can be our workers and help to repair the castle. If they perform well, they can be promoted and receive 1 gold coin per month. The people's eyes lit up when they heard that. Many of them were low-class servants in Wilbur List Manor. It was good enough if they could get a few silver coins per month. They did not expect Watson to be so generous with them, and that rekindled their hope for survival. It seemed like they could accept their fate as a captive in Black Moon Castle. Yes, young Master Watson, List replied respectfully before he looked at Monica with pity. Miss Monica, please come with me. Then, the group of people followed Lists and entered Black Moon Castle in an imposing manner. Throughout the day, the guards brought more assets and people from the other defeated manors. The resources were divided into categories and piled in the castle. As a result, the number of people in the castle had increased from dozens to thousands, and it was very lively. Night fell, and Watson sat in front of his study table in his bedroom. He peeled a rainbow phoenix chicken egg gently and stuffed it into his mouth. He looked at the list in front of him. It was what List had listed after he accepted all the farm resources. First, the Black Moon Knights. Their number has increased from 30 to 50 men. Watson muttered in a low voice as he chewed the egg and tasted the fragrance in his mouth. They had managed to find 1 or 2 bronze tier guards from every defeated manor who had wanted to defect to Black Moon Castle. Previously, they had been imprisoned in the dungeons by their manor owners. Watson was very grateful to those people. If it were not for their intention to defect, then the strength of the Allied troops that attacked Black Moon Castle would have been increased by several times fold. Therefore, Watson was very thankful for them. He did not test them, he allowed them to join the Black Moon Knights. He also gave them bronze tier armor and a liger. Those armors and magical beasts were part of the assets sent by the various manors. Some of those defeated manors traded in magical beasts, some traded in ores, and some even traded weapons. They had all kinds of resources. Black Moon Castle obtained a total of 12,000 iron tier magical beasts, 1,000 bronze tier magical beasts, 1,000 sets of iron tier armor and long swords, a total of 100 sets of bronze tier defensive weapons, and more than 100 pieces of jewelry, and 200,000 gold coins. There were also other items like meat and rice noodles, but he did not count those. It was a huge harvest, so Watson was excited. I hope that the other manor owners at the border can be like these ignorant people and attack me and give me rice. If we do this a few more times, then our assets will increase by tens or hundreds of times more, we'd be the largest force at the border. Black Moon Castle had managed to defeat their opponents comprised of more than a dozen manors. They had proved their strength. The other manors were no fools, they would never send men to test Black Moon Castle in the short term. Master Watson, the hot water is ready. Would you like to take a bath now? At that moment, someone pushed the bedroom door open. Wendy, who was in a maid uniform, walked into the room. She was the one who had asked that question. A yellow-haired maid in a similar uniform stood behind Wendy. It was Capella. Young Master Watson, I have prepared a bathrobe and a change of clothes for you. I have also cleaned your dirty clothes in the bathroom. When you take a bath, please allow me to scrub your back. Capella wrinkled her nose and glanced at Wendy, who had a smug smile on her face. Humph. Wendy's expression looked a little ugly. Ever since Watson took over the other manors, they had about 3,000 workers to help with the castle's repair work and an increased number of maids. There were more than 20 of them, and like Capella, they were all professional maids. Wendy had never been a maid before her position in Black Moon Castle, so she felt a little intimidated as if her role was impacted by the other maids' presence. Chapter 80, A Rewards for a Meritorious Deed. Phew! This feels so good. Watson was soaking in the bathtub as he enjoyed Capella and Wendy's service. A waterproof chandelier hung from the ceiling, and it emitted a soft and hazy light. The bathroom was spotless because it had been cleaned, and the floor even reflected that lonely light. "Young Master Watson, is this okay?" Capella dabbed the water with a towel gently as she wiped Watson's back before she moved the wet hair that stuck to her face. Even though Capella looked average, her freckles that symbolized her youth and her rosy cheeks made her look adorable. Furthermore, she was only wrapped in a towel, and her voluptuous body was clearly visible. "Young Master Watson, the water is a little cold. Do you want me to add some hot water for you?" Wendy did not want to be outdone. She glanced at Capella's voluptuous body and then looked down at her flat chest, which was also wrapped in a towel, and pursed her lips in disappointment. "Okay, just do as you wish." Watson laid against the edge of the bath and rested his head on his arm. There were more than 20 maids in the house, and it was time to choose a head housemaid. He also wanted each of his family members to have a maid each to serve them. He tentatively decided that the head housemaids would be Wendy and Capella, and those two were also his personal maids. "Young Master Watson, can you really do as I say? Then I won't stand on ceremony." Capella's eyes lit up. She grabbed the ribbon wrapped around her waist and pulled it off gently. She took off her bathrobe and pressed her body against Watson's back. Then she rubbed against Watson's back with her breasts. She even applied soap on them so that her movements would be smooth. "Ah!" It was so comfortable that Watson exclaimed in surprise. He did not expect Capella would be so bold to do such a thing. Young Watson immediately reacted. "Young Master, are you not feeling well?" Capella moved closer to Watson's ear and blew on it gently. "This is how I usually bathe Miss Monica. If you are not satisfied, then I can change to another position." "No, this is fine." Watson shook his head with a reddened face and moved his burning face into his arms. That was the legendary service known as the ripple push, Watson shouted in his mind. Did Capella really use that method to help Monica with her bath? Was Monica the legendary Yuri? When he thought about how the two women would have hugged and rubbed against each other repeatedly in the bathtub, he felt a warm sensation in his nose. That scene was too beautiful for him to ponder. He had transmigrated to that world for almost half a year. He had never thought that he would receive such treatment. However, his body was still a child, and he was the nominal owner of Black Moon Castle. He could not lose his reputation. Why did I have to transmigrate as the youngest man in this family? If I had transmigrated to be the same age as my eldest brother, then I could have taken care of these two maids. Watson complained as he suppressed his impulses. He had not hit puberty, so for the sake of the future, he did not plan to lose his virginity so soon. "Wendy, do you want to join in the fun?" As he enjoyed himself, Watson waved at Wendy, who was stunned. "Young Master, I'll pass. I'll go boil some more water." Wendy got up shyly and ran out of the bathroom in a flash. She leaned against the door outside the bathroom as her fingers clutched the towel tightly. She panted intensely. "How can I do such a shameful thing? Young Master, you're bullying me." Watson enjoyed Capella's service for an hour before he continued with his bath. When he was done, he changed into a white robe before he told Capella to assemble all the maids in the house. Alan, List, and the other Black Moon Knights were also there with him. "Alan, List, William, step forward. The three of you killed the most enemies in that battle, so I will fulfill my promise. You have the right to choose one of the manors that we seized. And except for Wendy and Capella, you are free to choose any of these maids to be your personal maid." Watson smiled at the three of them. He had made a promise during the battle with the allied forces of the manors. Those who killed the most enemies would be rewarded with a manor. Alan had killed the most enemies. He had killed more than 300 men. List also killed more than 300 people, but still less than Alan, while William killed about 100 enemies. They were very impressive. Alan looked solemn, and the corners of his lips revealed the anticipation in his heart. He had remembered every word that Watson had said, and he had been waiting for the young master's announcement. He had finally gotten it. List said, "Thank you, young Master Watson." Then, he stepped forward as well. He might have looked calm, but the muscles of cheeks twitched slightly, a subtle motion that indicated differently. He had been living in a small house with his parents, and he never thought that he would become a silver-tier warrior, let alone own a manor of his own. He could bring his parents with him and not bother young Master Watson any longer. William was the most excited one among the three of them. He was a burly man and as big as a giant bear. His tanned face was full of facial hair, and he was grinning from ear to ear. When they had their first round of tests in Black Moon Castle, he was the first one to apply for it. However, he had failed both tests, but Watson still accepted him. He had the highest attack power among the bronze-tier warriors during the battle, and he had risked his life to kill the enemy. So he deserved to get rewarded. He had not dared to think about his own manor, but he would get one that belonged to himself. He would be a manor owner. The other knights, including those who had just joined, looked at them with envy. They clenched their fists as they made up their minds. If a similar battle were to happen in the future, they would definitely perform well and strive to stand out among the knights. They knew that Watson would reward them handsomely. "We've seized many manors. The first one is the Wilbur List Manor. It covers an area of 5,000 square meters and has a farm and a courtyard with a fountain. It has about 100 rooms, which makes it the largest manor on the list. The second one is Zangwill Manor. Even though it is not as big as the previous one, it has a better environment. It has a polo field." Watson told him the information he had read in his bedroom. He listed all the strengths and weaknesses of each manor. "Young Master Watson, I will choose Zangwill Manor." As the one who had killed the most enemies, Alan was the first to make a choice. Everyone was puzzled. They did not understand why he did not choose the biggest Wilbur List Manor. Alan scratched his head as he explained, "My parents died more than 10 years ago, and I don't have any other relatives in my family. It's not enjoyable for me to live in such a big manor. It'll give me a headache to keep it clean. Therefore, I prefer a manor with a good environment." Watson nodded in agreement. "I shall fulfill your request. From now on, Zangwill Manor is yours. It will be renamed the Allen Manor. In addition to that, you can also choose one of the maids." Alan swept his gaze past Watson. There were more than 20 maids who were so nervous that they were pinching the corners of their clothes. He pointed at a pretty girl with curly chestnut hair and looked about 20 years old. "I'll take her." Alan was very excited when he had chosen, and the maid was excited as well. She would soon live in a huge manor. If she put in more effort and had sex with Alan, she would be the mistress of the manor. Then, she would also become an official member of Black Moon Castle. If they had to choose between a role as the mistress of the manor, or a maid under someone else's command, it was easy to tell which they would want. The other maids, who had not been chosen, were not discouraged either. Instead, they puffed their chests and waited for the next round of selection. They still had 2 more chances. In the tense and exciting atmosphere, List and William made their choices, one after another. List chose a maid who looked honest and capable in the Wilbur List Manor, and William chose a manor with its own training ground and a petite maid in her prime.